Hey, hey, welcome to the show, Cruising with Phil. My name is Phil the Cruz. I'm back with a new guest, special guy. Met him during election, fellow mayor candidate, and he also ran last year, and he didn't appear for reasons. Anyways, his name's Jack Weenan, good guy, like the mustache. Hey, Jack, how you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me on your show. I've
Yeah, thanks for
been
coming on.
watching a few of your episodes for a while, and I think
Oh, okay.
conversations like these are one of the biggest reasons why I started running.
Oh, that's great, great. So tell the people who you are and what y'all about.
Well, I started running when I was 18. My first This is my third election that just passed.
Okay.
I It started out as there was a conversation about Toronto politics, about all this stuff, and a few of my friends were really encouraging. For me to run. I wasn't even sure if they were being serious, but um, my first run, I believe I was the youngest person on the ballot. I think there was another teenager there too, but we have a few of those every election, and I think that in its own right is pretty valuable for the political diversity. And then the second election I ran, I was amazed at how much just a little bit of name recognition went. I got up to 600 votes on the second election. Um, and since the second election, the first election, I'd say my politics at the time were I was very young. I was 18, and there were a lot of things that I had strong beliefs on that I didn't have the life experience to back up. And the second election that I ran, I really started thinking about ways that the city was coming together and ways the city would not come together. And that really led me down the path of looking at how the Harris government and then the Ford government has been shaping the way that we've been able to represent ourselves, and well, more realistically, the ways that we don't get represented since these changes have come in. And the result is just the lack of conversations that we have. And then this third election that I ran in, that really just got reinforced in my mind, because when you have 102 people running, that means that those a lot of those people running, and this goes for myself largely, don't feel like we have our voices being represented by representative politicians, and so we take it into our own hands, start these conversations, see where they go, and try and keep an open mind and shape our opinions with them.
It's funny you mentioned that. That's people make jokes about the 102 candidates, but you also what you point is that those people running are actually going to do something for the city. Not a case of numbers, but it's just there's just representative people. We talked before the phone. Voice not heard. No public opinion out there during this last by-election. Uh, Last year you were in the election. Saw your name last year, but can you tell people why you didn't run or why you were in any of the debates or anything last year?
Yeah, so last year, yeah, I guess technically this is my fourth election, third that I've run in. There was the by-election with Tory's big surprise. So I wasn't actually expecting that, but in the election prior, where he did get reelected, I'd broken my I had a motorcycle accident just a few weeks before that started. And by the time I was walking again, I mean, nominations were still open. I was focusing on my body. I was focusing on getting better, getting walking, making sure that I wasn't creating a situation where I was going to be limping for years and years. So yeah, I broke a few bones, and spent the better part of 6 months to 8 months recovering, and now I'm about 13 months in, about 95% of the way there.
So when did you have the accident? In July or August or what?
July, or yeah, end of July.
And
So
when did you sign up before that? Did you register before the election or after?
yeah, I'd started to I wasn't entirely sure, because there were a few candidates that I really did like, that I was starting to think about maybe working with their campaigns. Again, like, these conversations start happening, and you do start putting your faith and your efforts and your energies into other candidates. I mean, later in the election, once this all got underway, guys like yourself. People like Sarah Clemenhaig, people like Darren Atkinson. You know, these people are very willing to have conversations where the result is everyone in the room understanding what's being talked about, and that to me is worth the run. And I think that if we had responsible politicians being elected and incumbent, their job really would be going down to the municipal level of consultation and then listening to these conversations and incorporating them into policy rather than building policy around blanket promises.
So you registered after the accident, like just after, shortly after,
No,
or
I didn't. Once I was down. I mean, it was I had a body cast on from about here down for
oh my
the
gosh,
better
wow.
part of it. There was there are some times in your life where you just got to realize when it is and isn't your time to be in the spotlight, and I really needed to focus on myself during that
Oh my
time. So
gosh, that's
I'm
imagine.
glad I did.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm
Yeah, we
still
saw
not
you.
riding though. Oh my God. If there's one thing we could talk about, transportation safety. Like, how many people do I know getting hit on a weekly basis in this city?
So what the accident being? What, did somebody hit you with your bike or what? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I got T-boned by a car. So
Oh wow. So was there like any kind of a lawsuit involved or whatever?
pardon me?
Was there like a lawsuit involved or anybody the guy that hit you?
Yeah, it's the thank God for insurance companies, really. I mean, I was able to attend physical rehabilitation and was diligently doing it. I gotta say, I found my savior, the swimming pool.
Oh
What
yeah.
a what a saver that is.
Oh, oh yeah.
But
For
yeah,
your head?
I've really been working on getting myself back to a physical state where I can make sure that my mind and body are properly balanced so that we're not lopsided in that regard.
Oh wow. Wow. It's crazy. And just I actually Chara Padavani, she just had an accident, a bike accident not too long ago. I don't
Oh,
know
I
if you
didn't
know
know
that.
that. I
Yeah,
hope
yeah.
she's okay.
Yeah, she got she got a big cast and operation. I think she had an operation or whatever. Yeah. Just took her right out of the scope there, you know. It's great. She ran last year for the I forgot what award. She's a nice lady. I met her, nice lady, but just it just throws you for a loop, least expected. So tell us about yourself. I know a bit about your background, but where you came from and where you raised.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised basically Kensington Market. Um, I guess technically I was in Baldwin Village for the first few years. But yeah, I was born and raised in the Spadina and College area. I've watched this neighborhood completely change. What a shocker that is. For the first I guess for most of my teen years working, I was working in the harbor, and that turned into a really rewarding career in trades. But Kathleen Wynne made tuition free for mature students. And by that time, I'd already been out of school for 6 years, 5 years. I was living in Paris, working as a carpenter. And
Paris,
when that
France.
opportunity for, yeah, Paris, France. Um, when that opportunity for education came up, I jumped on it. And
Oh,
so I'm actually just finishing my undergrad right now. I should be graduating by Christmas, if all things go according to plan. And then yeah, from here, I think I'm gonna try and keep the ball rolling with an LSAT. We'll see how that works out. And
what are you studying in school?
history.
Oh, you like
History and
history?
philosophy, the most useful ones. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure every union hall in the country is has a big lineup for philosophers
We
and
had, we,
historians.
I had to study philosophy when I was studying to be a priest for 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as
Yeah.
liberal arts go, I mean,
Did
if you're in school as a mature person who already has a
yeah,
trade, if there's
yeah.
one thing you should go for, it's something that you're interested in, that you're passionate about, and that you're going to learn something in. And I've definitely hit all three of those, like
So
really
anything,
well.
I gotta pick your brain. Any particular philosopher you kind of enjoy reading?
Uh, um, I'm gonna be honest, I'm on a bit of an anarchist binge right now. I'm kind of going back through Peter Marshall's anthology, kind of revisiting, Bakunin and Kropotkin's ideas right now. It's so misunderstood. I myself don't really understand it, and the same way that the climate right now in the country, internationally, people are throwing around the F word, the C word, the every other political affiliation title, and anarchy is one of those ones that gets thrown around a huge amount. And I found myself, after hearing it for the thousandth time, that I needed to know more about it, and the more I read about it, the less I understand about it. So I think we're on the right track.
Oh, well, yeah, it's funny. So, and also you're studying history. What kind of history do you like? Ancient or modern or what? Or all of it?
So yeah, I mean, I have a background in marine trades and diving.
Are you a
So
diver?
that's, yeah, I did a lot of that for a little while.
Oh, yeah, I love
So
it.
I mean, the dream is to go to the Mediterranean and go, find Roman shipwrecks, but
I found a lot of
uh
dirt. I found a lot of dirt over
yeah,
there.
I mean,
Remember?
that's a pipe dream.
Oh, really?
Primarily, I think my interest in history is the tangible stuff. Um, Thinking about what elements of the sardine fisheries in Southern Europe went into making all those beautiful colors on the walls. Like, how is it that the industry shaped the culture that shaped it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, and super useful. Like I said, the union halls, they've got postings for historians and philosophers coming out the wazoo. I'm sure of it. I haven't looked yet, but don't burst my bubble.
Yeah, yeah. So you like to go over there and work there for a while?
What's that?
Just for
In
like for diving? You like diving?
Yeah, diving. The industry is pretty hardcore.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it's rewarding. It's fun. It's definitely fun, especially for a young man.
Yeah.
And but yeah, no, honestly, when I started school 5 years ago, I really, I think I get garnered a better respect for my own trades, and for people who have mastered their trade for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. um but I mean, I will admit, when I went into the trades, I had a pretty abhorrent high school record as far as my ability to talk back rather than do my homework. Um, and a lot of my friends who were going to school, you guys don't know where you're there. You guys are wasting your time. I'm making as much money right now at 19 as you're going to be 5 years after finishing that thing. And then when I started school, I realized, there's an element of being a whole person and I mean, my grandpa told me a lot about this, is that you got to balance your career with your mind, with your body, with your family, and like, that's what makes you you. And I for a few years there, I'd really neglected the meta mind development that I'm undergoing right now, and it's hugely rewarding. Yeah.
Did you find you do more reading now than you did 5 years ago?
I'm reading different things. Five
Yeah.
years ago, I was like Kurt Vonnegut, uh, Ursula Le Guin, like full on sci-fi. And now it's, what am I reading? Um, Ian McEwan. Like that, yeah. As far as like novels go, I've kind of very much moved out of the sci-fi as much, more into historical novels and yeah, historical novels and philosophy.
Like, do you ever reflect like all the things you did 5 years ago, what you read back then 5 years, now what you're doing now? Like one thing leads to another, the old chain reaction. learn, discover, perceive, and move on, and then continue on and educate yourself every day.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah, do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your how you got interested in. Did you start volunteering before you became interested in politics in your community?
Well, like I said, a lot of the running for the first time, which I guess sparked the second and third run, came from friends and family. But coming, like being born and raised in Kensington Market, you have this very obvious community structure, this community support network, which is strong and communicative and interdependent. It's really inspiring. And I mean, politically, I think that what's the best way to say this? I mean, I made a deposition at the city hall the other week for the Safe Streets project that they're pitching in Kensington, which is just riddled in ambiguous statements that are probably going to result in zoning changes. And the strength of the community and its ability to organize and go represent itself was so evident and so inspiring. And then it all got undermined to the strength of the business associations, which are filled with large companies and representatives sitting on the business association who work for a company that has representatives on 12 business associations around the city. So like that kind of stuff was extremely frustrating to see, and also really encouraging to see the way that my neighborhood just immediately was able to snap back with alternative and sometimes not traditional ways of organizing.
Talk about
Uh,
your. Sorry to cut you off. Go back to your community spirit in Kensington. What is it about Kensington that made you just saw the community spirit? Like I've seen a few things. You live there, so what did you saw that made you cherish that part of that community? You know, what did you see about it? What is about Kensington that made it? I've heard different things about Kensington, even St. Lawrence as well. Great community spirit, like you talked about yourself.
yeah, St. Lawrence is another good example of it. I mean, this neighborhood is kind of the byproduct of the gentrification that took place in the 1920s through the 1960s in the ward where we've got all of our hospitals and institutions now. And again, it's coming and it's experiencing another kind of displacement. But in resettling it, the first group to come over here from the ward were predominantly Jews, and the Italians who followed them went up to college. But then the way that the market has gone through phases, I mean, when I was a kid, I mean, up until a few years ago, it was extremely Latino. Now we've got a large number of Turkish businesses opening up, and the way that the business, that especially like new Canadian businesses are able to set up here, there's this attitude with the residents, with the other business owners, that's so integrative. It's like, hey, welcome to the country. You've been here for 8 months. We're going to treat you like everyone else has been getting treated for 25 years. And with that, there's this instant success that happens with so many of the businesses that recognize that and adopt that into their way of engaging with the community. And I think it's pretty evident when you see which businesses do and which businesses don't succeed in these small communities. It's very reflective on the way that the business is engaged with its patron, with its clients, the way that the business engages with the other businesses on each side of it, the way that the business engages with their employees. Is it the owner that's operating the business, or do they have somebody coming in from a 45-minute subway ride to work for $15 an hour? So like that kind of tacit understanding of how to create something that you live in It doesn't even need explaining. It just happens and it works, which is why I get so flabbergasted when people want to shape it to work with the new idea of the city, shape it to work with, oh, we're gonna have a new model for getting around your neighborhood, and we're gonna implement it in every neighborhood in the city. Well, it's like the St. Lawrence Market, Kensington Market, Roncesvalles, Park. Like these are areas that don't you have no reason to leave your neighborhood if you don't need something that doesn't exist, which is almost nothing. It's so when we reshape communities on a policy like government level, I what I see them doing, and I see it in Kensington, like almost all the neighborhoods that are based on a market platform rather than a services platform. It's they undercut the businesses that make those markets hold together. Um, and I think that if the community stays together around those core businesses, then like the case of Kensington Market, despite the coffee shops, despite the overwhelming drug shops, it's not even pot shops anymore, it's everything. It's the
Don't forget the shoe
community can
stores.
still retain control over their life together as a community.
We talked before on the phone about this. These immigrants came over to our city. They grew the community by establishing these businesses, right? The Jewish sector, the Italian sector, the Portuguese, small businesses, mom and pop stores, we call them. They grew up, they established a community. That made the community till this day. But when you get these conglomerates, we talked on the phone about this, the enterprises coming in and get rid of, like over here, Lawrence and Don Mills. Used to be a hat store there. Been there for like 30 years. You know, homemade hats. This guy's well, but they got pushed up because they took over the community, built these, what do you call them, franchise stores, and he's gone, unfortunately. But that
Yeah.
area, he grew that community, that whole area. Like you said, I like to do a book. I see a book say it's called the small business that grew the city of Toronto, because this is all about, right? You go anywhere you go, like even all the Kensington, you go down there. I walked there the other day, and it's like all these small businesses, and like I looked at the history, got this history page, look at it, like, not there anymore, it's gone. But that established, like there's a Jewish deli last year closed down, been 35 years. That established that community because where people come together, different ethnic backgrounds, they kind of stick together, and then they grow out, right? So, but I
Yeah.
think unfortunately, if they're right, you don't need to touch it. There's no, I don't want to like what this whole attitude is, we're going to restructure every community. It's not the same. Like every ward is different. Like my ward over here, North York, Scarborough. Leave it alone for small businesses, whatever. And now they're being ignored
Yeah.
because I get nothing against the BIA. I don't feel about the BIA, but the BIA, I've talked to people in Lawrence, small business in Lawrence, a lot of Indian and Pakistani stores, they're ignored by the BIA because they said they're not part of the conglomerate of well-known names in the BIA.
Mhm.
It's unfortunate. There's something we should do
Yeah, and
about
I'm
that.
sure I'm sure at Lawrence and Nelsme you've got the same problem that we do at Bathurst College is
Yeah.
you've got a fresh co, which in as far as GDP, they outweigh three-quarters of the business. They've also all of a sudden attracted a majority of new residents who are, living in condos that are overpriced and making compromises through their food choices. And then we give a seat to these major companies like the Freshcos. Kensington Market thankfully shut down the Starbucks that was going in. But I mean, to fathom the idea of having a Starbucks on a business owners association in ethnic minority neighborhood that has been, successful and autonomous since 1925
Yeah.
when they started moving. I mean, like it's yeah, yeah. We should be indignant. We should
Yeah.
be very indignant about this.
I asked this
Um,
on the phone to you the other day. I know you didn't agree with me. You think all these small businesses now have been shut down? Well, they closed down. You think there should be some sort of recognition from the government? I'd say compensation, but do you have a different opinion? but because they grew the community of Toronto, all these businesses that have gone, without them, that community would not have grown, right? Like the mom, we call them mom and pop stores, the half stores, the Jewish deli, the grocery store. I was biking on Danforth the other day. I passed a whole bunch of little small grocery stores. I just pulled up. I asked how long you've been here. He said I've been here 35 years. So that's amazing. Small grocery store, puts his roots and vegetables out every morning. That's his daily routine. He told me the whole story.
Yeah.
Just and that's going to be there. And then you know what? It'd be a shame if that would disappear if it was someone's store that came in on a franchise. Because that whole he told me he serves the whole community. He has people that he serves
Yeah.
shelters, food banks. He says whatever left over, he has women that come over. They take the produce, they make homemade stuff. They give it to the churches. They give it to people that are homeless. It's a whole chain reaction of doing good for the community. And you got something like a Starbucks comes in and they gets rid of that small little grocery store. To like the eyes of the businessman, I've been in business myself doing advertising. You look at that small store, they say, "Yeah, let's get rid of it. Let's make some money on that property." But they don't see the whole picture. You're going to affect that whole community, right? That's what I feel.
The it I think that what you're saying has a lot of validity, but at the same time, I just make the little clarification that sometimes things do fizzle out.
Yeah.
On a big scale, it could be Kodak. We don't use film anymore. On a little scale, SodaStream. Toronto used to be hugely into manufacturing soda water. Like we had soda water manufacturers on every little corner. Kensington Market, good example of how things fizzle out, pop up,
What's the
and
story
then prove that there just isn't room for that market anymore. Kensington Market opened up a soda shop, an old school soda shop, the kinds that were littering the streets from the 1890s through the 1930s.
You mentioned another
Uh,
store. The egg
well,
store. I think was you mentioned the egg
yeah, the
store.
egg store. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Great example. I
That's
mean,
so cool.
I miss the egg store. I really do. To everyone watching who was in Kensington 30 years ago,
Yeah.
you know which one I'm talking about. It sold eggs. That was it. It was financially viable, and it was a very important part of the community because that's where literally everyone from Dundas to College to Bathurst to, that's
Yeah.
where we bought our eggs.
How long was it there for?
I'm okay. I'm not before my time, I'll tell you
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, who knows how many years before my time, but there's I understand that there's some things that aren't as viable, but the the idea that and also the idea that mom and pop shops will close down because of social pressures. I mean, let's face it, the generation that was born in 2003 isn't really showing the signs of picking up grandma and grandpa's dried fruit and nut store. It's just not. I wish it was. The same way that I wish I, in some weird way, picked up my, father's company, who picked up his father's company, and so on. And like that's I'm not going to say it's antiquated. I'm not going to say that it's not in itself a hugely important and um, beneficial way of living, but it isn't the trend in urban youth. And I don't want to go ahead and tell people that they should pick up their parents' variety store if that's not the direction that they're going. And let's face it, if like you're saying, there's a racial element or a migrant element to some of these businesses. Maybe it only was one generation where they introduced something, it morphed to adapt into Canadian culture, and then got taken up everywhere else. Think of most of our ethnic foods, for example, like they're catered to our tastes. So that first generation restaurant that came in might not do so well, but the influence that it had
Right.
will. And I think that instead of maybe what you're saying, like paying reparations out to people who didn't succeed, if we can instead acknowledge the seeds of change and the influence and the positive elements that they left
In
to
case of
continue shaping. Like
not that they didn't succeed, just in case they had succeeded, just established the business and growing the community, which is sort of a compensation or recognition. Like there's no, you can go to the history books, you can look up the internet and find an individual, but there's no like one particular forum, like you actually go like this is how the community grew in Kensington Market, the egg store, like people, I'm proud people watching it go, what's an egg store? I never heard of it. I know about it, you know about it, right? Where can you read about that? It's now you told me a word of mouth. Where do you read that in a book? Can you tell me where you can find that in a book somewhere or any or
John Lorink. John Lorink, he's done great stuff.
he's a good guy. Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, I like to interview him. Yeah, yeah. But I'm just saying, like they're just not just a recognition from the government. You know, like well, they have plaques for everything, right? You know, they can have a plaque that may not be good. They're like we're talking about the other about these plaques that this business established, this community back, and like a little history. People like to when they go like you know what kind of things like would you like to see a plaque like say that this this business or this society or not society
Well, it's
community.
actually pretty easy to do that. You need 5,000 signatures. You need a text written that's about 240 words. It costs about $8,000, and for some reason, the plaques that they make those from are cast in the U.S. They're not cast here.
Oh,
But you know, that's my me. But yeah, it's totally doable. 5,000. You need 5,000 people to recognize that as a culturally and or communitarianly tripping over my words, as an important enough, significant enough event or landmark or be it, and get your plaque. Yeah, there's I mean there's a whole bunch of ways to go about making people feel included, and I think ultimately we really do an amazing job here of making people feel included. Um, going back to businesses shutting down. I mean, if you know, if you're like hinting at the tyrannical shutdown of the world that resulted in every small restaurant in the city shutting down and every small business in the city shutting down, and I don't even want to think about the actual numbers that I've read about. How many of them stayed shut down? That's another story. Do we owe people reparation for that? No, I think we owe them a promise that it's never going to happen again. Again, does that directly have to do with Toronto's business lineages, or does that have to do with the larger movement of yeah?
again,
I mean, the other conversations about the ways in which the world is run.
yeah, exactly.
That's
We'll go in
yeah. I
the
mean,
second part. We'll go. Second part. We'll talk about your politics. Just part. Gee, for this one in, just so your buddies are bugging you to run for politics. They must have seen something in you to ask you. You thought they were just teasing you, right? They must have seen something in your character as a person to say, "Hey, why don't you run for politics, Jack?" You know, you said they thought they were joking around on you.
well, now again, context is everything here. When I was 18 running for the first time, my opposition was Rob Ford. I
Wow.
mean, I was going up against a real heavy hitter here. Um, so yeah, that first run was. I mean, let's face it, the politics largely is a popularity contest, and I think in a beauty pageant, I'd have him in a bag, but unfortunately, the election didn't pan out like that. But we ended up with Tory, and well, I guess he's prettier than Rob Ford too.
Yeah. So I just got 1 minute and a half left. So do you want to go on the second one, or do you want to take a break, or what?
Yeah, we can take a little break.
Okay, I'll take a 5 minute break, and I'll come back in the second one.
All right.
We'll talk about your politics and we'll get into your more political stuff there.
Okay.
Yeah. And talk in about 5 minutes, we'll come back there and we'll get into your stuff there. Okay, so I'll be back. Yeah.